Burning cities, dead families, entire continents shattered by nuclear blasts. The Galactic Council had totally underestimated humanity, and now our homeworld lies in ruins. We were too proud to take the human threat seriously. Now, we pay the price with our blood. Patrick Robertson, a human soldier, forced his way through the crowd. The angry shouts of protesters filled the assembly chamber. Monster! Murderer! Knox waited at the podium, tentacles folded. The councillor watched Patrick with narrowed eyes. I'm here. What do you want? Patrick growled. He ignored the seething alien mob around him. The Akamarians have a doomsday weapon, Knox said. Strong enough to shatter planets, protected by shields our lasers can't penetrate. Let me guess. You want my help. Your crude projectile weapons can damage them. You dragged me here for this, after your kind bombed us back to the Stone Age. The Council had its reasons. Earth was... Save it, Patrick snapped. I'll deal with your Akamarian problem. But then your Council stays the hell away from humanity. Forever. Knox clenched his jaw. The mob shouted in outrage. Your species started this war, human. And I'm going to be the one to finish it, Patrick said. He turned and pushed back out through the yelling crowd. The alien protesters threw trash. Knox's voice boomed from the speakers. Stop the human. He must not leave this chamber. Patrick smirked. He cracked his knuckles. Come on, then, he said, taking a fighting stance in the center of the room. Let's dance. As alien bodies hit the floor of the assembly chamber, Patrick made his way to the hangar bay. He had already sent out a call, assembling the best human soldiers and operatives left in the galaxy, men he had fought beside in the Great War, who had proven their grit 100 times over. They were waiting in the shuttle as Patrick stormed up the ramp. Jake, Patrick's most trusted pilot, fired up the engines. Where to, boss? The Akamarian homeworld, Patrick said, strapping into the co-pilot's seat. We're going to take out that doomsday weapon. The rest of the team, demolitions expert Riggs, tech specialist Hawkins, and marksman Booker, exchanged glances. They knew this was a one-way trip, but they were ready to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect what was left of humanity. They flew in silence, each man preparing mentally for the mission ahead. As the ship dropped out of warp near the Akamarian stronghold, Patrick gathered the team. Listen up, he said, pulling up a hologram of the target. The Akamarians have some kind of energy shield protecting the planet. We'll never get through it without disabling the generators first. Hawkins, that's your job. Once the shields are down, we blow the weapon to Kingdom Come. Riggs, you're on demolition duty. Booker, you cover him. The men nodded. They knew their roles, knew what was at stake. Patrick opened his mouth to say more, but suddenly the ship lurched violently. Alarms screeched, and warning lights flashed red. What the hell was that? Riggs yelled, grabbing onto a bulkhead for support. They've made us, Jake shouted from the cockpit. Akamarian energy weapons firing on our position. Patrick stumbled to the front viewport. Bright lances of energy sliced through space, barely missing the ship's hull. The planet loomed ahead, surrounded by a pulsing web of impenetrable shielding. Get us out of here, Jake, Patrick ordered. The pilot wrenched the controls, sending the ship into a stomach-churning dive. But it was too late. A blast struck the rear engines, sending a shudder through the entire vessel. We're hit, Hawkins reported, frantically working the damage control panel. Engines are shot, shields failing, we're dead in space. Patrick gritted his teeth. The Galactic Council had set them up, sending them in with bad intel. The Akamarian defenses were far stronger than they claimed. We can't run, he said. We have to finish the mission, Jake. Aim for the surface. We're going in hot. Are you insane? Booker asked. We'll never survive a crash landing. We'll sure as hell never survive up here either, Patrick shot back. This is our only shot. While their gunners are focused on our crashing ship, we'll bail out and infiltrate on foot. Jake angled the nose of the ship towards the planet, engines screaming. The hull glowed red-hot as they knifed into the atmosphere. Patrick felt a strange calm wash over him. One way or another, this ended today. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. It was up to him and his band of brothers to finish the fight. The ground rushed up to meet them. As the ship shook itself apart, the team braced for impact. This was it, the final mission, the reckoning between mankind and the monsters who sought to destroy them. Patrick closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. Then the world exploded in fire and darkness. Patrick coughed, shaking off the dizziness from the crash. He kicked open the crumpled door, emerging into the smoky air of the alien world. His team stumbled out behind him, checking their weapons. A plasma bolt sizzled past his head. "Contact front," Hawkins yelled. A dozen Akamarian soldiers advanced on their position, energy rifles blazing. Patrick and his men dove for cover behind the smoldering wreckage. "Fucking Council intel," Riggs growled, slamming a fresh magazine into his rifle. "We walked right into a goddamn ambush." Patrick blind-fired around the hull, the bark of gunpowder loud in the thin atmosphere. "Quit whining and start shooting." The humans laid down a withering hail of lead. The Akamarians' shields flickered and died under the onslaught, unable to repel the primitive kinetic rounds. Alien soldiers fell as bullets found flesh. But the humans didn't get away unscathed. Booker took a plasma bolt to the chest, his armor smoking, and Sam, Patrick's oldest friend, caught a shot in the gut. He collapsed in a spray of blood. "Man down!" Hawkins shouted, dragging Sam behind the ruined engine block. Patrick cursed, squeezing off a burst that dropped the last Akamarian. He sprinted to Sam's side, pressing his hands against the wound. Crimson leaked between his fingers. "Hold on, buddy," Patrick said. "You're gonna be okay." Sam coughed, his breathing ragged. "Don't bullshit me, Patty. I'm done for." Tears stung Patrick's eyes. He looked to the looming fortress in the distance, then back at his wounded men. The doomsday weapon was so close, but his friends needed him. He made the call. "Hawkins, stabilize Booker. Stop the bleeding." The medic nodded, already tearing open a trauma kit. "Jake, take Riggs and infiltrate that stronghold. Find the weapon and blow it to hell. I'll stay with the wounded." Jake hesitated. "Boss, are you sure? We can't leave you—" "That's an order, Jake. Complete the damn mission." Jake swallowed, then squared his shoulders. "Roger that." He and Riggs grabbed their gear and took off at a run, vanishing into the rocky terrain. Patrick dragged Sam into the wreckage of the ship, doing his best to patch him up with their dwindling medical supplies. Booker lay beside them, unconscious but stable. A harsh alien voice boomed outside. "Humans, surrender now." Patrick peeked through a rent in the hull. A whole platoon of Akamarian troops had surrounded the crash site, energy weapons aimed at the ship. He checked his rifle. Half a mag left, a couple of grenades on his belt, not much to work with. But he was a human soldier. He'd make it count. Patrick looked down at Sam, at Booker. His brothers, his responsibility. No way in hell was he letting these alien bastards lay a finger on them. If this was his last stand, he'd sell his life dearly. He took a deep breath, the calm of battle settling over him, stepped through the hole in the hull, rifle ready. "I've got a better idea," Patrick replied, his voice like ice. "How about you assholes piss off back to where you came from before I shove your fancy energy weapons up your collective ass?" The Akamarians responded with a barrage of plasma fire. Patrick dove back inside as the bolts scorched the dirt around him. He primed a grenade and lobbed it through the breach. The explosion rocked the ship, alien screams filling the air. Patrick rolled out into the open, rifle snapping to his shoulder. The world slowed down, his senses crystal clear. He squeezed the trigger, again and again, until the bolt locked back on an empty chamber. Akamarians dropped left and right, but more kept coming. Patrick ducked and dodged, scavenging weapons and ammo from the dead. An energy bolt clipped his armor, burning through to the skin beneath. Patrick ignored the pain, slamming a fresh power cell into the captured rifle. His mind raced, searching for a solution. He just needed to buy Jake more time. He spotted a rocky overhang near the ship, a natural choke point. If he could draw the enemy there, force them into a killing field. Patrick broke from cover, sprinting for the outcropping. Plasma bolts chewed up the ground at his heels. "That's right, you alien fox," Patrick shouted. "Come and get me." The Akamarian stronghold loomed before them, a fortress of gleaming metal and pulsing energy shields. Jake motioned for his team to take cover behind a rocky outcropping. "Hawkins, scan for weak points," he whispered. "Riggs, prep the breaching charges." Hawkins pulled out a handheld scanner, sweeping it over the stronghold's walls. "There," he said, pointing to a small access hatch. "Minimal shielding. We can blow through it." Riggs grinned, already attaching explosives to the hatch. "Fire in the hole!" The charges detonated with a muffled thump, blasting the hatch inward. Jake was the first through the breach, rifle up and scanning for threats. The corridor beyond was dim, lit by pulsing red emergency lights. Akamarian glyphs flashed on the walls. Jake's translator implant deciphered them. "Intruder alert. Intruder alert." "So much for stealth," Riggs muttered. A door at the end of the hall hissed open. A dozen Akamarian soldiers poured through, energy rifles crackling. "Contact front!" Jake yelled, opening fire. The humans pressed themselves against the walls, trading shots with the advancing Akamarians. The air filled with the stench of ozone and scorched metal. An energy bolt clipped Jake's shoulder, spinning him around. He gritted his teeth against the pain, forcing his rifle back up. "Push forward," he ordered. "We have to reach that control room." Riggs primed a smoke grenade and hurled it down the corridor. Thick grey smoke billowed out, obscuring the Akamarian's vision. "Move!" Jake shouted, charging through the smoke. He slammed into the first Akamarian, driving his rifle butt into the alien's face. Bone crunched, and the soldier dropped. Hawkins and Riggs were right behind him, engaging the enemy hand to hand. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were human. They fought with a ferocity and skill the Akamarians couldn't match. Jake put a burst into an alien's chest, the rounds tearing through armor and flesh. He pivoted, smashing his elbow into another's throat. A barked order in Akamarian cut through the chaos. The smoke parted, revealing a towering alien in ornate armor. He carried a crackling energy glaive, his eyes glowing with malevolent light. "Commander Zorn," Hawkins breathed. The Akamarian commander lunged forward, his glaive slicing through the air. Jake barely managed to dodge the blow, feeling the heat of the blade as it passed inches from his face. He brought his rifle up, but Zorn batted it aside with contemptuous ease. The alien's foot lashed out, catching Jake in the chest and sending him flying. Jake hit the wall hard, the breath driven from his lungs. He looked up to see Zorn advancing on him, glaive raised for the killing blow. Suddenly Riggs was there, tackling the commander from the side. They hit the ground in a tangle of limbs, struggling for control of the glaive. Jake forced himself to his feet, snatching up his fallen rifle. He took aim at Zorn's head, but the combatants were rolling and thrashing too violently for a clear shot. Riggs cried out as the glaive's blade slashed across his chest, leaving a smoking gash in his armor. Zorn kicked him away, rising to his feet with a snarl. Jake didn't hesitate. He charged forward, swinging his rifle like a club. The butt slammed into Zorn's head with a sickening crunch. The commander staggered, his glaive clattering to the floor. Jake pressed the attack, raining blows down on the alien's head and body. Zorn's armor cracked and split under the onslaught. Purplish blood splattered the walls. Finally, the Akamarian collapsed, his skull a ruined mess. Jake stood over the corpse, chest heaving. Hawkins and Riggs limped to his side, their armor scorched and dented, but their eyes alight with the thrill of victory. "The control room," Jake said, his voice ragged. "We're almost there. We have to—" A tremendous explosion rocked the stronghold, throwing them all to the ground. Alarms shrieked and the lights flickered wildly. Jake looked up at his men, eyes wide. What the hell was that? Halfway across the fortress, Patrick rolled to his feet, coughing in the dust and smoke. The hidden entrance he'd found had led him straight into the Doomsday Device's chamber, just as Warlord Zaxor was preparing to arm it. The Akamarian leader spun to face him, his eyes widening in shock. "How did you get in here, human?" Patrick leveled his rifle at Zaxa's head. "Step away from the device, you bastard!" Zaxa's lips curled in a sneer. "You're too late. Once I enter this final code sequence, nothing can stop the device from firing. The Galactic Council will burn, and the Akamarian Empire will rise from its ashes." "There doesn't have to be any more death," Patrick shouted. "Disarm the device and we can end this, find a peaceful solution." "Peace?" Zaxor spat. "I will have vengeance. The Council will pay for what they did to my people." The warlord's hand darted toward the control panel. Patrick fired, but Zaxor was already moving, his genetically enhanced reflexes faster than any human's. The bolt scorched the floor as Zaxor leapt forward, a crackling force blade appearing in his hand. He slashed at Patrick's face, forcing him to reel back. Patrick dropped his rifle, bringing up his armored forearms to block Zaxor's next strike. The force blade hissed and spat against the alloy, sparks spraying. "Damn you!" Zaxor snarled, his blade a blur as he pressed the attack. "I will not be denied my revenge." Patrick gave ground, barely staying ahead of the warlord's superhumanly fast strikes. He was outmatched, and he knew it. Zaxor's enhancements made him far stronger and faster than any human. But Patrick was smarter. He'd seen a weakness, a pattern in Zaxor's technique. The warlord was so focused on offense, he left his guard open for the briefest of moments after each strike. Patrick waited, biding his time as he dodged and blocked. The force blade sizzled past his face, close enough to blister his skin. "There!" Zaxor overextended on a thrust, his blade passing harmlessly over Patrick's shoulder. Patrick lunged inside the warlord's reach, hammering his armored fist into Zaxor's jaw. The alien reeled back, spitting blood and broken teeth. Patrick pressed forward, raining down blows on Zaxor's head and body. But the warlord was far from finished. He roared in rage, lashing out with a kick that caught Patrick in the stomach, sending him crashing back into a bank of machinery. Warning klaxons blared as the impact smashed delicate instrumentation. The Doomsday device thrummed ominously, its energy readings spiking into the red. Patrick dragged himself upright, gasping for breath. Zaxor stalked toward him, force blade blazing with deadly light. "So I'm going to carve out your heart, human," the warlord growled, "and then I'm going to burn your homeworld to ashes." Patrick's hand closed around a jagged shard of metal, torn free by the impact. He surged to his feet, hurling himself at Zaxor with a wordless cry of desperation and fury. The makeshift blade punched through Zaxor's armor, burying itself in the warlord's chest. Zaxor stared down at the wound in shock, dark blood bubbling from his lips. "How?" he gasped, the light fading from his eyes. Patrick wrenched the shard free, letting Zaxor's body crumple to the floor. He staggered to the Doomsday device's control panel, staring at the flashing warnings and shrieking alarms. He had no idea how to shut it down. The technology was far beyond anything he'd ever seen. If he made a mistake, it could set off the device, dooming billions across the galaxy. Patrick's hand hovered over the controls, his mind racing. What could he do? What choice did he have? Every second brought the device closer to activation. He had to act, had to make a decision. But what if it was the wrong one? Sweat stung Patrick's eyes as he ducked under Zaxor's wild swing. The force blade hummed past his ear, singeing his hair. Patrick drove his boot into the warlord's knee. Zaxor howled in pain and rage, but his genetically enhanced body absorbed the blow. He lunged at Patrick, fingers hooked into claws. Across the fortress, Jake and his team blasted through the final sealed bulkhead. The Doomsday device loomed before them, a pulsing sphere of malevolent energy. Hawkins sprinted to the control panel, his hands flying over the alien controls. "Shut it down!" Jake yelled, training his rifle on the entrances. Riggs covered the other door, sweat dripping down his face. Hawkins shook his head, his expression grim. "It's no good. The system is locked down tight. I can't hack it." Jake's heart sank. They were so close. There had to be another way. His eyes fell on the device's power core, a seething mass of unstable energy. "The core," he said. "If we overload it—" Riggs' head snapped around. That'll vaporize the whole damn place, including us. Jake met his teammate's eyes. A moment of silent understanding passed between them. They knew what had to be done. We don't have a choice, Jake said. It's the only way. Hawkins' fingers danced across the controls, rerouting power, disabling fail-safes. Warning klaxons blared, the device shuddered, the energy building to a crescendo. In the depths of the stronghold, Patrick's fist crashed into Zaxa's face, shattering the warlord's nose. Zaxa reeled back, purple blood splattering the floor. Patrick pressed his advantage, hammering blow after blow into the alien's body. But Zaxa wouldn't go down. With a roar of fury, he caught Patrick's fist and twisted, bones crunching. Patrick screamed, pain lancing up his arm. Zaxa head-butted him, stars exploding across his vision. Through the haze of agony, Patrick saw the chasm yawning behind Zaxa. The warlord was focused entirely on him, oblivious to the drop. If Patrick could just get him a little closer. He staggered forward, feigning weakness. Zaxor snarled in triumph, raising his force blade for the killing blow. Patrick charged, slamming into the warlord with every ounce of strength he had left. Zaxa's eyes widened in shock as they toppled over the edge together. His scream echoed off the walls as they plummeted into the abyss. The Doomsday device reached critical mass. A blinding white light consumed Jake's world. In the instant before oblivion claimed him, he saw his fallen friends, Sam, Booker, and now Riggs and Hawkins, standing tall beside him at the end. "Hoorah!" Jake whispered. The explosion ripped through the stronghold, a miniature sun birthing and dying in the space of a heartbeat. Stone and metal vaporized, disintegrating into their component atoms. The Akamarian fortress was wiped from existence, along with everyone inside. Light years away, in the heart of the Galactic Council, the assembled aliens erupted into cheers as the sensors registered the Doomsday device's destruction. Nox sagged in his chair, relief warring with a sudden, terrible realization. The humans had done it. They had saved the galaxy, but the price? Nox looked around at the celebrating councillors, their joy ringing hollow in his ears. They had no idea what had been sacrificed this day. The human soldiers had willingly given their lives to protect a galaxy that despised them. And for what? So that the Council could continue to look down on them? To treat them as primitives and savages? Shame burned in Nox's chest. They had been so wrong. The humans possessed a courage and selflessness that put the Council to shame. In the face of annihilation, they had stood tall, refusing to back down. And now they were gone. The best of them lost forever to the uncaring void. As the celebrations continued around him, Nox bowed his head, a single tear tracing down his leathery cheek. The galaxy would never know the truth of what happened here. They would never understand the magnitude of the sacrifice. But he would. He would carry the memory of the fallen humans for the rest of his days, and he would fight to ensure that their loss was not in vain. That humanity would take its rightful place among the stars, respected and honored as the heroes they were. It was the least he could do, to honor the brave souls who had given everything to save a galaxy that had never deserved them. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.